Hey friends, you're watching BrainStorm Acres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
Today we're going to be taking the next steps on this cat in the corner.
Yeah, right. What's she doing?
She wants to get in the box.
Oh. Yes, we all know the best way to trap a cat is to simply put an empty box someplace. Well, we'll see. If she gets to be a pain, I will lock her in the bathroom temporarily. Because I'm a meanie.
It's really nasty weather outside. We're having snow and rain and snow and wind and cold and
and yuck.
And yeah.
And lots
so
of yuck.
We're staying home. I'm not going to work outside. Irene did some weed pulling yesterday in the rain.
Felt great.
But
yeah, she was in between bands of rain and snow. Anyway.
But we're going to go ahead and work on this vacuum wax caster today. What we'll be doing is specifically testing the power requirements for this wax pot, the vacuum pump, and you have one like this in your vacuum caster down in the studio.
Right, right. It seems like it's about the same size. Mine's in a case, so you don't tend to see it separately, but it may be a smidge bigger than that. But.
So you can fill that up with vacuum oil,
right?
And we'll test that, and then we'll also test the compressor.
Right.
The whole point is to find out how much current this stuff is going to draw in operation.
Right.
I think I have an idea what the plate says on the back of the machine, but
it's always nice to double
I don't
check.
Trust anything.
No. Well, I know that when I'm working down in the studio, I can look at and I'm doing enameling work, for instance, I can look at the electrical conditions when I get there. What are the batteries doing? And I can work for a certain number of hours before I have to worry about the battery life reducing to the point where it affects my kiln. So knowing how much juice this will take in comparison to the equipment I'm currently using will let me know how much I can work when and all that other stuff without whether we have to steal some juice from the house or whether we have to run a generator or any of that other stuff.
Now, we've talked about molds a lot in association with this equipment. Do you happen to have one with you?
I do. He actually sent me on a mission in the rain. No.
Hey, what are husbands for?
Right. Anyway, what I did is I brought up a selection of sizes because molds come in all different shapes and sizes. And this would be one of the biggest ones I would be doing. And probably this little guy would want to be one of the littlest ones. These are not the same size, but you can see they kind of vary in size from fairly small up to gigantic in terms of thickness and width and height and everything. And one of the goals is to be able to develop a system for this machine that will let me say, okay, when I'm doing this size mold, I know that I need to put this much pressure on it, I need to have the wax at this temperature, and all that sort of thing, and how long it does everything for. And that means I will get a cleaner piece of wax that it will take little, if any, work before I can actually cast it. And that's a big reduction in labor time.
Yeah, Irene has been casting using lost wax casting for more than 25 years. So she has a lot of knowledge and a lot of skill at doing this.
Right.
She has fully functional hands. I don't have fully functional hands. So she can actually hold the right amount of pressure on these molds when she's filling them with wax.
Right.
And I can't. Well, I can't do it every single day or at least every single time. So repeatability is a really big thing.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that this machine is going to do for us is we can program in the amount of time that the vacuum is pulled on this mold. So what will happen is this mold will go into the slot, it will attach to the machine, air will be sucked out of this mold.
Well, it'll be held so that there's no gaps on the sides. So see, right now there's a slit. That's where you open the mold to take the wax out. So it'll hold this tightly enough so that it keeps the sides locked up without crushing it, because if you crush this too much, then you deform the wax that's going to grow inside it.
Exactly. So what happens next is there'll be a vacuum that sucks the air out of this mold for an amount of time, and Irene will determine when she programs this up how long it needs to suck out air. Then it turns on some pressure that will pump the wax into this mold.
And there'll be molten wax in this area here. This is actually like a pressure chamber that has a heater in the bottom that will melt the wax, and then the wax gets squirted out through a little nozzle down here.
Now, there's actually an air gap in this pot. The pot itself will only hold about 6 kilograms of wax, and then there's an area around it that is empty. So there's both an air reservoir inside here as well as some insulation, because air is a pretty good insulator. So
Right.
rather than lose all the heat, the air will help hold the heat in.
Right.
So the machine will then pump in wax, and then a specified amount of time later, it will pump in some more wax at a
Right.
slightly higher pressure.
And that may not be necessary on some of the small guys like this, but on some of the bigger ones like this, for instance, to have that option could make a big difference. And on the really big ones like this,
What do you cast in that one?
this is a turtle brooch. So this is a giant brooch. Yeah, we call them turtle brooches because they look like the shell on the turtle. It's a Viking brooch.
How do these currently cast? How well do they cast?
Once the wax is made and perfect, they cast very well. But the problem is the wax. So a lot of time I might make 10 of these waxes in order to get one that's good enough to repair that I can use it, because it's a difficult shape. Looks like a little brain in here. It's got, it's a large volume of wax. Like right now, this has been down in my studio, so it's cold. Yeah. So you always expect the first couple of times you cast, especially if you've been in a cold environment, you expect the molds to be too cold and it'll fail. But that's fine, because you're just going to do it again. But because my studio is not really climate controlled, I mean, I've got a wood stove down there, but I sometimes will choose to work cold, because if I'm doing something like forging, you're going to work up a sweat anyway forging. And that's fine for me, because I can throw on an extra jacket.
Not so good for the wax.
No good for the wax at all. The wax wants to be a good hot temperature. It's normally, in my current machine, about 140 degrees.
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit. And which hurts when it gets on your hands.
It hurts when it gets on anywhere. It's one of the reasons why Irene wears protective aprons and gloves.
Yeah,
and
you see there's one of the old aprons I have there that I usually reserve mostly now for doing wax work has red wax down the front of it. It looks like I'm a butcher even, and I killed something, But
Now,
it's just red wax.
These molds all have the inlet portion of the mold in different places. Can you kind of tell us how these work?
We're going to actually be building something with this, but they give you instructions on how to do this. This machine piece here is a specific size, and what you need to be doing is you need to be controlling the position of your mold. So I will actually need to have a whole stack of these with a frame, basically, to create a way to hold different size molds. So, for instance, this one, if this was where it was going to attach to this machine, would be like right there, and then there would be a spacer here, and a spacer here,
So you use the two sides to
and a spacer here.
So you use the two sides to get things in the right position.
Right, and this becomes just a little frame, so that when it's time to do a mold, you just literally go plop, you don't have to think about it. And that's why I'm going to need a whole bunch of these pieces of...
That's all acrylic.
Like acrylic stuff.
That's easy to get. I can cut that in various sizes and various shapes.
Right.
I think we have 3 or 4 different sizes here. We have a piece of, it looks like, could be Teflon
Yeah, looks
or
like Teflon. I don't know what they wanted me to do with that. But this is, I know how they want you to do it. They want you to create a thing here that you can slide in. If you have a mold, for instance, that is shallower, you might need an extra spacer in there. So I may need to have some for spacing. I have a few in stock that I have for working on a hydraulic press, but I want to get separate ones for this so I can keep them on their own little cart to roll around with. I don't like to steal things off my hydraulic press, and I want people to find it when I need them.
yeah, one of the things that we're trying to do is we have 2 vacuum pumps right now today, but one is dedicated to air conditioning system evacuations. The other one is in Irene's vacuum casting machine. It's,
Right.
as she said, inside a metal enclosure.
Right.
Well, I don't want to be taking that apart
Oh,
to
no.
be able to set this up.
I just repriced that piece of equipment the other day. Oh no, not even sort of.
And I don't want to be taking the air conditioning vacuum pump and hooking it up to something that could potentially get some wax
Mess it
inside
up.
it.
And I have yet another air compressor down in the studio that I'm currently using for my old wax machines, but that can also be used for another piece of equipment I have there for cutting sprues. So sometimes you have to duplicate your machinery so that you're not constantly running around and changing things. It just makes it way more efficient. And that way you can set a piece, like if I use my vacuum pump down there for running the wax machine, the wax injector that I have down there, I have to set it for a specific number. If I want to use it for the sprue cutter, I have to set it for something else. And yeah, I keep a chart, but it's still a pain.
So the whole point here is that I want to have this piece of equipment self-contained. In other words, I want the vacuum pump and the compressor to be associated with this machine all the time. I'm waiting for a cart to come in from a supplier. We'll put this on top of the cart and we'll have space underneath for the vacuum pump as well as the compressor.
Right, and any random supplies that we might need, like having extra spacers and different sizes of controlled space with little whatnots. And that sort of acrylic is very easy to cut with a saw. You can cut it with power saws. You can also cut it with hand saws. It stinks, so always use good ventilation, but that's okay. You're just melting a little bit when you cut it.
Okay, well let's go ahead and get started measuring the power consumption for this unit. The unit is comprised of actually 2 pieces, this wax pot. Well, first we'll get the power consumption for the wax pot, and then I think Irene will go ahead and turn on the controller and we'll get a measurement then.
Okay.
I'm using a watts, W-A-T-T-S, up, Watts Up Pro.
Paper
And pen,
and pen.
writing implement.
Yes, in a notebook that no one's allowed to lose. Because it's not yours, it's mine.
I can lose it for you.
If there's a murder in the city of Ashfork, you'll know what happened.
I think I'm not going to lose it. I'm going to hand it right back. Okay, I'm using a WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a piece of software.
Yes.
I'm using a WhatsApp.
What's up?
What's up? I keep on saying WhatsApp.
What's up Pro?
I'm using a WhatsApp Pro. It's a device that can measure the amount of power that is plugged into this particular machine. I can measure how much current is used, how much power is used over time. It's a really great product to have. So let's go ahead, Irene, and why don't you turn on the wax pot?
Okay.
Convenient little switch.
Yep.
535
You're
watts.
reading it upside down. It's 593.
It was 530.
It's still going up.
It's going up. Let's call it 600 watts.
Yeah, because it's real close to 600 now.
And then let's go ahead and turn on the controller for the auto clamp, and I'm going to watch this. Okay, that adds about 8 watts. So this is now 603 watts.
Okay, I'm running 605.
All right, you can go ahead and turn that off. Now this is actually heating up the wax that's not in the wax pot right now.
Yes, right.
Okay, go ahead and turn off the unit here. And it's down to 0 watts.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, you want to go ahead and fill this up?
Okay.
You know how to do that. You've done that lots.
I do. In fact, I've never used a jar this small of vacuum oil because mine comes in the gallon jugs for the because you need to change it periodically.
Why is that?
It gets dirty. Sometimes it gets sort of sludgy.
Yeah, you get water in it.
Damage. Check oil level before use.
Yeah, when you get water
Gotcha.
in vacuum oil, it turns into pudding.
Yes, it does. Because I've had to take pudding out of there before, and I just got the room real warm, and I let it leave for a couple of hours until all the pudding was gone. Because I wound up with some extra sludge on the bottom that I didn't want. And then you just fill it up again with clean vacuum oil. Technology. And yeah, it works just fine. Okay. Now, I need to be able to see where the level is. Oh, right there. And this is not going to be a level table, of course, but...
Yeah, according to the manufacturer's information, this vacuum pump requires 8.5 ounces of vacuum pump oil. And that container holds 8.5 ounces of vacuum oil.
Right.
Is it filling up?
Yeah, it's currently overfilled, but this table's on a slant. So my guess is if you don't slant the table, still a little higher than I would normally allow for my other vacuum pump, but...
Well, we'll go ahead and try.
Sometimes there's a
one.
bubble in there or something like that too.
That's exactly the point. And I
So
suppose I need
I
to...
kept out about an ounce, maybe a half an ounce.
All right, I'll plug this in and we'll turn it on.
Oh, noise.
190 watts.
Okay. And you made sure that was right side up, right?
Yes. If you thought that was noisy, wait until we turn this on.
But the one that I had down in the studio are way louder than that. This one's going to be a beast. Because the compressors are always beasts. This one isn't too bad.
There's the switch.
Just make sure it doesn't vibrate off the table. That's another thing. Some of these things will take off across the room. And nothing happens.
Nothing. 350 watts.
Okay. I bet the cat's nowhere at this end of the house at this point.
I'll bet.
Oh dear. Poor thing. That is noisy.
Yeah, I think the switch might be a little sticky.
It sounds like it is sticky.
Let's try it a couple more times.
It'll be fine.
I think that's going to work just fine. And if not,
We have
return
a
it.
warranty. Yes. Okay. So now we know what each thing uses. And we've got the oil in the vacuum pump.
that's ready to go.
Save this for later. What else did you want to get checked out here?
I think that's it for today. Come on over.
Steps.
Okay,
Small
so
steps.
to recap what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're assembling a professional quality vacuum wax injector for Irene's business. Normally these things run $11,000 to $17,000. And all in at this point, we have less than $1,800 into everything that's here on the table.
Right. The current one I'm using is a very simple version of this. It has no vacuum associated with it. It does have a compressor, which is separate, just like this one is. And I think those are now up to about $1,200. I did not pay $1,200 for mine. I bought mine used.
Yeah, we were going through Albuquerque after one of our events. We stopped and we were lucky enough to be there when they were doing one of their clear out the warehouse sales.
They still do it, only online though. So there's some of the equipment is still available online. I don't think the deals are quite as good as they used to be, but all the prices for everything, just like in your groceries in the grocery store, are way higher than they used to be. So, yeah.
All right, well, I think that's it until the weather gets better so that I feel comfortable driving up to Flagstaff.
Yeah. I suspected, you know, we were supposed to be like 17 degrees tonight or something. But I suspected that if this was going to be a successful snowstorm from the perspective of like snow accumulations, we'd need to drop the temperatures this morning, and they didn't drop. So the problem is that we're right about freezing. So there's parts in the yard that are frozen and parts in the yard that aren't frozen. And there's stuff is coming out of the sky mostly as snow, but it's not sticking.
Well, it's a good excuse to stay home. I have some other things I'm going to be doing this afternoon. Irene's busy doing some online work. In fact, I interrupted her to shoot this segment.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to be doing a segment of my own on another topic this afternoon too, probably, because it's an important topic that I think people don't understand.
I agree with you. I can't wait to edit it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we're doing lots of stuff, a lot of different things, and gardening season is just starting up. Irene has a bunch of seedlings that have come up, and she can tell you all about those later. Things are happening in the yard.
Things are happening in the greenhouse.
Things are happening in the workshop, good heavens.
Yes. And in the studio. I mean, lots more needs to happen in the workshop, but part of the problem is right now we need to do some reorganization. And if anyone has ever done reorganization, you know you have to trash the place in order to clean it up. And the problem with that is in some of these spaces, we need to actually take stuff outside, which means it can't be raining, it can't be snowing, the wind cannot be blowing 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So we need okay spring weather that's guaranteed to be okay for all day so that we can take a bunch of stuff out, do some of the things we need, and then put it back in.
And when we put it back in, it'll take a lot less volume than what it takes right now.
Right. Some of it, we'll probably get rid of a few things. We will fold up some things, like we've got a couple of tarps that just need to be folded in order to take less room. We're going to be increasing our shelf space in the workshop because right now the shelves are 4 feet tall. They could be 8 feet tall. So things like that. But you have to have decent weather in order to be able to throw everything out the door.
Keep your finger...
I need to repair the door too. Yeah, it's one of those details.
Keep your fingers crossed for some nice weather.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. We'll talk with you later.
Bye.
Don't forget to brainstorm.
Obviously we do.
Brain cloud.
Brain cloud. More caffeine.